Hi, I'm Judy Kerr, and this is Acting is Everything. And so I get today to talk to one of my favorite acting coaches, Jeffrey Marcus, and we're going to talk all about the art of acting. I'm sure we'll be talking about what it takes to explore the acting side of yourself, and we'll be talking about all kinds of things. So stay tuned. Jeffrey, I'm so glad that you're with me.
I'm so glad to
Great.
be here on Valentine's Day.
On Valentine's
Happy Valentine's Day.
And happy Valentine's to anyone who may be watching this on any day. So I was just asking, you're teaching 3 classes a week now.
Right.
And do you teach scene study? What's your philosophy of acting? Now, first of all, I have to ask you about the lower third we have up there, actor counselor.
Right.
Rather than acting coach. What is that about?
Well, I got a master's in spiritual psychology, and I realized through that basically any actor that comes to me usually has all the answers already locked inside them. And I started realizing that my job is really to help people, to assist people in finding their own artist, their own voice, their own imagination. There was nothing I had to teach them that they didn't already know. I could remind them of some things and give them some aha moments, but really, acting can't be taught. It can be steered and guided and inspired.
You're saying acting can't.
I don't think acting can be taught. I remember as a young actor, I was working with the director, and I was working so hard, and I kept saying, what more can I do? And he said, you're doing great. And I said, no, but unless it's as good as Marlon Brando's, there's more I can do. And he looked at me like I was crazy, and I didn't really understand it until years later, that Marlon Brando had a certain level of talent. I have a certain level of talent. I can be the greatest within the amount of talent I've been given. But I'm not going to be Marlon Brando, nor should I be.
No, you'd have to gain a lot of weight.
Exactly. Exactly.
But you're as cute.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. So the counseling thing came from that. My parents were both teachers. I knew I did not want to be a teacher.
Of course not.
So I didn't want to be called an acting teacher, and an acting coach. Whenever I would describe myself as a coach, people kept thinking I was going to be a soccer coach or a tennis coach, and they'd get disappointed when I said an acting coach. So
you're a counselor, an actor counselor.
Right.
And speaking of this talent, for those who may be watching and haven't tested their talent, how does a person know whether they have talent for acting?
That's a really good question. I think that talent is very similar to a capacity for love. And I think that if you really love acting, more than likely you're going to be willing to go to the places that it takes in order to reveal your talent. Because it can be very self-confronting. It can be very painful. It can be very freeing. It can be very enlightening. But it takes a certain amount of work to really go inside and find the talent that's to be revealed.
Well, what kind of work? How do you do that?
Well, there are many different ways.
Is that something that you do in your classes?
Absolutely.
And how do you do that?
Well,
what's your technique? What are you method? Are you your own, or what?
I'm a hodgepodge. I mean, I went to Carnegie Mellon, so I have conservatory training, and then I was in New York for 10 years where I studied with Stella Adler teachers and Sanford Meisner teachers and Lee Strasberg teachers, and my biggest mentor was a woman named Mira Rostova, who taught Montgomery Clift and Geraldine Page. And I tried to find the similarities. It's like when you study a lot of religions, you start seeing that there's more similarities than differences. So certainly I come from that background. But I think that since Strasberg taught, he was coming from a very Freudian place, there's been so many changes in psychology. I mean, from Gestalt to neurolinguistic programming to behaviorists. So I try and bring also what's happened in psychology and spirituality since the 30s into the work. Basically, it's all geared around a scene, because my problem with Meisner work, as much as I love it and savor it, is that oftentimes people could do the repetition exercise great, but give them text and or someone to work with that wasn't up to their par, and they would, same thing with Strasberg, people could do a sensory exercise to beat the band, but give them text and, or a sitcom, and so what I found is it's all geared towards the scene. That doesn't mean that sometimes we don't do exercises that help people to work with privacy, a sense of intimacy, a sense of
So what kind of exercise
listening.
would that be?
Some of the privacy exercises I use Uta Hagen's fourth wall exercise to create a sense. I use Lee Strasberg's private moment exercise.
I hope not to the extent of Shelley.
No, not to the extent of Shelley. That's on the pay-per-view site of yours, I guess. The other things I'll do is I use an I feel exercise, which is I believe an Eric Morris-based exercise. So I'm kind of very promiscuous in which teachers I'll steal from, but I've stolen from a lot. And certainly I give it my own flavor because indeed the I feel exercises go into speaking out exercises, go into something I call close-up exercises.
And do they do this in front of the rest of the class?
Yes, I actually have a very well-known personality right now who wants to work privately with me. And I would make a lot more money by working privately with her, but I urge her to come to class because I think there's something to be said about doing these intimate exercises
In
front of people, being witnessed. Because as an actor, you're always going to be witnessed. Prior to, I'd say, 1940 or 50, most of the work that we did as actors was on stage. And that's why so many of our, I think, great film and television actors have come from that stage or from vaudeville or whatever, because they know how to work an audience. And I think that's something intangible that can't be taught, that it's important. So although I keep the classes small so that people work every week, I think it's imperative to do the work that we do in front of people.
Well, and on a set, God knows, you've got 50 crew members there. So you are always working, even though there may not be an actual audience there. Certainly there's an audience, there's people watching.
Absolutely, and as you know, before you get to the set, there's going to be casting directors and producers and network. So you really have to get used to that angry hole that witnesses you.
Good. Now, why I download some of the stuff from your website.
Okay.
And
www.jeffreymarcus.com.
Why train? And we're just talking about can acting be taught, and you're saying no, but why train then?
Well, here's why acting can't be taught, because really all you're doing is you're behaving privately in a public forum, I think. I mean, all of us, if you're in a scene where you're having to call someone that's very challenging for you to call to tell them that you want to break up, we've all done that. We haven't had to rehearse it. We haven't had to think, what's this supposed to look like? We've simply gone through the motions and actions of doing that. So when you have to do that for a movie or for a television series, it's not that you have to be taught how to do that. You know how to do that. What you need are the tools to help you create privacy, immediacy, urgency, being in the moment, allowing yourself to fully go into the thoughts without worrying what you look like. You know, in life we don't think most of the time of what we're looking like. That's why so many on-camera classes confuse me. I think it creates an actor who's very self-conscious as opposed to someone who's unself-conscious. And I think that's one of the greatest tools you can have as an actor, is being unself-conscious and just behaving and doing as you would in life. We don't need to be taught how to love someone. We don't need to be taught how to kiss someone. We don't need to be taught how to get furious with someone. We do that. What can be taught is the circumstances and things and emotional places and aspects of ourselves that we need to engage in order to do it truthfully under imaginary circumstances.
And there's the rub.
Yes.
Truthfully, under imaginary circumstances. So how, again, for someone who's just thinking of it, doesn't even understand what that means, how how can you start to think about that on your own when you don't have a actor counselor available, or you don't have the means to the other people around you? How can you start thinking about that, or how can you observe that, or what does that mean, imaginary circumstances or being truthful?
Okay, that's a great question. I think that we always have, those of us who are actors, and whether you're currently a teacher, a director, a writer, if you're an actor, you're an actor, you know. It's kind of like if you're a Jew, you're a Jew, whether you follow the faith or not. And I think that that inner actor gives you a sense of self-observation, a sense of a witness to what your life is. So as you go through your day, because it was Valentine's Day, I was in a rush, but I wanted to make sure I had you flowers. So I was watching myself as I drove here and noticed the time and noticed that I had to get flowers, and was I going to go to the village or was I going to go to Vaughn's? And to Vaughn's, should I get the roses or tulips? No, I don't want to get the roses because she's married and that's inappropriate. But the tulips, women like tulips, one or two. Well, one looks, I'll get. So I went through this whole 15-minute privacy exercise. I was doing it. I wasn't aware of cameras around me, but had you filmed it, it would have been interesting.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I think there's such a proliferation of reality TV, because I think audiences want to see those life or death stakes, those moment-to-moment reality, people thinking, people planning, manipulating, fooling themselves, etc., trying to fool others. It's fascinating to watch reality TV. They don't get it so much in regular TV because I think the level of acting has gotten shallow. It's, you know, I think a lot of actors, and I don't mean to dismiss them, but I'm going to, I think if you come from a cold reading class, you come from a workshop with the casting director and consider that your training ground, you don't know how to go deeply into yourself in order to bring forth your good, your bad, and your ugly. And I think scene study, I think that really observing yourself in circumstances allows you to bring forth all that into the imaginary circumstances.
Right. And what's so valuable about scene study is that you rehearse for it ahead of time, and you show up and you deliver it, and you get your notes and you take those back and you bring it in again, and you can really keep working to those depths, where in other types of classes, I'm a fan of all teaching and learning and all of that.
Sure.
I really am, in audition classes and whatever. But without studying basic technique, basic scene study, not meaning that that's less than anything else, but just that bottom line, how to build your character and how to be in the scene. What type of material do you use for the scenes, or do your students bring that in?
I usually end up giving out the scenes simply because being in Los Angeles, there's not the theatrical culture. So, and I tend to use more theater scenes than film scenes because film scenes are so short and tend to be filled with action. And theater scenes, if you can really understand the psychological machinations of yourself and your character, then it allows you to go deeper. The thing that all great actors have, to me, are a certain authenticity and a certain intimacy. And you know, whether it's Montgomery Clift or whether it's Meryl Streep, there is an intimacy. And I think that in scene study, both actors come from the theater. There's a sense of, there's a difference between learning to love from one-night stands and learning to love from relationships. I think there's just more depth and richness and color, and it's a difference to me between fast food and a home-cooked meal. It's how much love you can put in, how much of yourself you can put in, how much you're willing to risk and dare. And I think that in a scene study class, you learn to do that. Now, I know actors who say, well, I'll just work on my auditions. I'll get coaching for the auditions, and that's how I'll learn to act. But the auditions are a very different animal. And I think unless, like an athlete, unless you're training every week and it's become part of your practice and part of how you see the world as an actor, then when you get those auditions, it's so much catch-up. And the stakes are so high, and Hume Cronyn said tension is talent. All your tension goes into getting the audition and being good in the audition, as opposed to using the tension to reveal your talent through the work.
What do you advise your actors that get discouraged? Say they're doing well in class and they're really delivering performances and such, but they aren't getting jobs.
Here's my belief, and I don't know other teachers or other classes, just the ones that I've been in as an actor and the ones that I've taught. I feel that as actors start doing a real masterful level of work, they tend to leave because they start to get work. I notice it again and again. I start seeing someone really gaining mastery of their craft, and within months, they're working. It's happened time and time again. And I remember as a young actor, it would happen to me. If I wanted to get work, I had to get myself in a class. And sometimes it took 6 months, sometimes it took a year. But when I would reach a certain level, it's almost like a pimple coming to a head. Not a pretty metaphor, but it's almost like everything in the universe assists you in getting that job.
So you would say to that frustrated actor to work harder acting?
Yeah, I mean, listen, frustrated actor, it's kind of redundant. Every actor is frustrated, but I think a lot of actors are spinning their wheels.
In the frustration.
Yeah, and putting their attention on getting work. And I mean, I don't know if Picasso's intention was on selling paintings. He loved to paint. He painted, whether people bought it or not, but the more he painted, the better he got, the more they sold, and he continued to paint. You know, it feels like so often as actors, we feel that the goal is to get a job. And our job as actors is a very ancient and honorable profession. I think it's to point society to where it's going. I think it's to open up our hearts so that whoever witnesses us has an opened heart. I think we're healers. And when our focus is on getting a day play or recurring on something, we lose the grandness of our profession. We lose our responsibility. I mean, in our society now, if you look at what people look at the internet, it's not the politicians so much, although during election years it is. It's not the religious leaders so much. It is the actors, the singers, the artists. We truly do assist society in where it's going. Unfortunately, right now, we're not living up to our potential. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of chaos in the world. But I'm excited. I think these are very powerful, very transitory times.
I do too. We're in a changing universe.
Yes.
What can actors do to focus more on, because as we were talking, there's so much, especially in Los Angeles, focused on the job and the audition and you don't hear so much about changing the world, being a reflection.
We are the kernel of truth at the center of this business. I mean, you have producers and directors and agents and showrunners and managers and dressers and I mean, you have so many people around this kernel of what people pay to see, which is the actor. But oftentimes the actors get bought up in the business, which, again, as I've told you, I think everything an actor needs to know about the business is in your book. After that, it's all in the hands of the gods. So what we can do is take care of our talent and our craft. And it's not knowing how to say a line sincerely. It's really about revealing our souls. So the more actors work on craft, the more they're able to do that. I also see so many actors now, of the great ones, who are using their voices to change and shift society, whether it's Bono or Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie or George Clooney. Actors are really taking the mantle and saying, okay, the cameras of the world are upon us. This is what I want to say. This is what I want to show. And then you have the poor actors who are falling by the wayside. We don't even have to say their names left and right because they have nothing to say. Right. The cameras of the world are upon them.
And there's nothing.
And there's nothing, and it self-destructs. It can't help but if it has nothing bigger than itself to say, then it just deteriorates.
What would make, because we're kind of talking about how actors succeed, do you have any thoughts on failure, on what can stop an actor, or what can, I guess it stopped them in the road?
Well, see, I don't think there is failure. I think that I know a lot of people who...
A lot of people are worried about that. That's
right,
why
who have started their careers as actors. And being an actor demands that you learn to listen in a certain way, feel in a certain way, experience the world in a certain way. I've had students who have gone on and become directors, writers, producers, and I mean Emmy Award-winning writers and producers, who have gone on to become chefs. I have students who have gone on to become great mothers. But it's their acting, it's allowing their spirits to rise to a level of experiencing life sensorily in its juiciness. So I think sometimes acting is a means to an end. I don't think everybody who started out as an actor necessarily has to be an actor, but I don't think they're failures. You know, I started out as an actor, and teaching is one of my greatest joys now.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to be a teacher. So who knew? But I think our greatest directors, you know, from Leah Kazan to Woody Allen, usually started out as actors.
Right.
Yeah. Mel Gibson. Are you getting a sign?
Mm-hmm. I'm getting a sign.
Which one are you getting? This one
no,
or
I'm getting
this one?
5 minutes.
Oh. I mean, look at your life. You know how, I mean, besides the fact that you are so brimming with life, would you have had that experience had you not come from a place of being an actor?
No, never. In fact, I tell the story that when I was in my mid-30s and I walked into my first acting class, it was like, because I had lived my life in this, what looked like perfect setting, and I was very good in that life, but I was always out of step. No one knew. Mm-hmm. And to walk into that room and within an hour know that I was in some magical place of people who were also out of step.
Yes.
And
or in step.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now I think of it as in step. I'm so lucky to be able to live my life as an artist. My husband's a musician in the music business, so we, I mean, everything we do is tax deductible.
And creative, I would imagine.
Oh, and creative,
yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a scientist, Kirchhoff, whose law of radiation is the best emitters are the best receivers. You can only put out into the world that which you can take in. And as actors, because we work sensorily, because we work listening not to what people are saying, but to the impulse behind it, we take in so much of life. And as a result, we can reveal so much of life if we have the skills. And I would venture to say that, sure, the figures of what percentage of actors are working versus which are unemployed, but what percentage of those actors are working on themselves and every day doing something to assist their craft? Whether it's reading or even watching TV from an acting point of view, not getting lost in the story, but studying the performances. What is that actor doing? What is their intention in the scene? How are they achieving? What are their obstacles? Are they successful? Are they unsuccessful? Are they looking for their marks on the floor? You know?
Right.
And you've worked on sitcoms, which are almost a science. I mean, sitcoms almost need to be studied.
Oh, absolutely.
The timing, the character work, the physicality.
The rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
The
when
tone.
an actor says, "I'm bored,"
how? I don't even know how that's possible.
How? If you're bored as an actor,
something's wrong.
Then there's a reason, and your spirit is telling you, get off your ass and do something.
Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey, we just agree on so many things.
Oh, good.
I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we've been And one of the reasons why I wanted you as my guest is because you're so uplifting to the actor, and you honor the actors so much and their work, and you understand the art and the craft. And I know the craft is so important to you, and you really so.
Thank you for seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, are we getting near the closing point? Because
Yes, we are.
I know you
Go
always
ahead.
ask if you don't live in Los Angeles, what
Yes,
can you
I
do?
wanna do.
Just some things that you can do is read any biography of any actor you can find. Read any book written by any acting teacher you can find, whether it's Uta Hagen or Meisner or Stanislavski or Boleslavsky.
Larry Moss has a one,
exactly.
Ivana Chubbuck
Well,
has
Larry
a-
Moss's is wonderful. Any of these teachers have wonderful books. Watch old movies. When you go on a film set, directors usually come from universities now where they study films, and they will reference old films. So watch a black and white movie. Watch silent movies. Watch any movie you can. Go to the theater. I mean, there's a certain level of craft as an actor you can only get from watching it live without the benefit of an editor or a director. Get political. Care about your communities. Read. Allow your mind to work in an imaginary circumstances. You know, if you don't have to study Russia in the 18th century, 19th century. You can read Dostoevsky. You can read Tolstoy and get a sense of what that life smelled like and felt like and tasted like and sounded like. I can go on, but I want to make sure that we're not being scrolled through.
I'll take care of that.
Okay, have a pet. Adopt a stray animal. Learn how to love in a different way. Set up imaginary. You can get Uta Hagen's Respect for Acting. She has amazing object exercises which you can do at home on your own. You know, with the fourth wall, from the phone call to urgency. Observe people. Look at paintings. Look at photographs.
Thank you very much for watching. And Jeffrey and I are going to keep talking.
Thank you.
So yes, the fourth wall.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Well, I love that.
More stuff.
I love the fourth wall exercise because it teaches you not only to listen and self-observation, but at the same time, it teaches you how to create privacy. So whether you're on a film set or a movie set or a TV set, you create four walls so you feel like you're in a room. You know, which is, I think, one of the greatest gifts an actor can have is privacy.
Right. Right.
Even if it's imaginary.
Well, because then you have the freedom to do things that you may not do in front of people.
Exactly. And my favorite actors were the actors who are willing to behave in a way that you wouldn't want people to see you behave.
Right.
I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis recently.
I just can't believe him.